We all know the strong spells. Fireball, heal, wish, and the like. But what powerful spells are flying under the radar that you may not know about? Today, we are going to discuss the most underrated spells for each level in 5e. Hello players and GMs, I am Reese and welcome to another video by Jetpack7. Before we get started, I want to thank those who have been liking, commenting, and subscribing. It has been a blast talking with all of you and hearing your opinions, good or bad. Be sure to hit the notification bell to catch these videos as soon as they go up. So, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by me, last week's video about weak spells got me thinking about other spells. In particular, spells that, from what I can tell, don't get enough love. These aren't necessarily spells I think are incredibly strong, just spells that I think are very useful, but get overshadowed by their more popular companions. Now, I've chosen one spell for each level, so I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, so this video doesn't end up being half an hour long. In the spirit of quickness, let's go ahead and get started with an underrated cantrip, Shocking Grasp. I suspect the reason Shocking Grasp doesn't get taken much is because it is a touch spell. As a caster, getting within melee range is generally what not to do. However, you don't always get to choose if you get in melee range of an opponent. Sometimes they choose for you. When you're a squishy little mage and the big beefy barbarian enemy runs up to you, you may not have many means of escape. That's where Shocking Grasp comes in. It deals 1d8 lightning damage, you gain advantage on the attack if they're wearing any metal, and if it hits, they can't take reactions. In other words, you can run away. The enemy doesn't get an attack of opportunity, and you slap them with the d8 or more of lightning damage depending on your level. That's not too bad for just a cantrip. Moving on now to first level spells with Color Spray. Color Spray sends out a dazzling array of flashing colored lights in a 15-foot cone. It kind of works like sleep. You roll 60-10, and the amount rolled is the number of hit points of creatures which can be affected. Starting out with the lowest hit point creature and going up from there, they are blinded until the end of your next turn. So for one full round of combat, you can blind multiple creatures with a single first level spell. So that's pretty dang good for such a low level slot. Not to mention there's no saving throw involved, so it just happens if they don't have too many hit points. It may not deal any damage, but being blind for one full round of combat is pretty debilitating no matter what level you are. Cast at higher levels, the dice roll increases by 2d10 for every slot above the first, so it's a pretty decently high value spell beyond first level as well. Alright, let's hit a second level spell now. Cranking these suckers out quick! Let's talk about Rope Trick. Rope Trick is one of my absolute favorite spells in the game because of the utility it offers. You touch the end of a rope up to 60 feet long, and it basically creates a little extra dimensional space where up to 8 creatures can chill. The thing is, you have to climb up the rope to get there. In addition, once inside the extra dimensional space, you can pull the rope inside so that no other creatures can come in. Attacks and spells can't cross through the space, and while you're inside, you can see out of the space as if looking through a 3-foot by 5-foot window centered on the rope. The reason this spell is one of my favorites is because I found a cheesy little bit of synergy with it and concentration spells. This spell does not require concentration, so if you have a rope trick up, you can cast, say, haste or fly on an ally and then just climb up the rope and pull it in. Suddenly, your concentration is essentially guaranteed to remain unbroken since nothing can hit you, and you can see what's happening in the fight outside. So whenever you need, you can hop out of the rope trick and heal your allies or whatever. Even just at second level, the spell offers a massive amount of utility and security at even the later stages of the game. I once used it with my wizard Simulacrum, and it was strong. Let's now get to third level spells. Third level is a difficult level to address because there are a lot of powerful spells. Anyone who's played a caster knows that the 5th level power spike is flippin' huge, and it's largely because you gain access to third level spells. One I think that doesn't get enough love is Bestow Curse. Bestow Curse is one of those spells that has a relatively long description because it offers a lot of options. Essentially, you curse someone and then choose from the list of given effects. There are a few cool options like giving them disadvantage on a particular ability's checks and saving throws, giving them disadvantage on attacks against you, and making your attacks deal additional damage against them. The strongest one by far, however, forces them to make a wisdom save at the beginning of each of their turns. If they fail, they waste their turn doing nothing. So essentially, if at any point they fail the save, they just don't get to play. This isn't like a hold person spell, which they only need to pass once. They need to succeed on the save every single turn. Granted, it doesn't paralyze them, but it can basically take someone out of a fight entirely. Not to mention it has those other effects, so it can fulfill a larger variety of roles than most other spells in the game. All those things combined make it a pretty high value spell for that slot. Moving on up to 4th level spells, I have Storm Sphere. Storm Sphere is an awesome damage and disruption spell that I haven't seen too many people use. It creates a 20-foot radius sphere of whirling air, which creates difficult terrain and can cause some damage to creatures in the sphere. Then, as a bonus action, you can shoot a little lightning bolt to any creature within 60 feet of the center of the sphere. If they're in the sphere, the attack has advantage, and if it hits, it deals 4d6 lightning damage to that creature. And that's as a bonus action. For reference, Spiritual Weapon at 4th level does an average of 15 damage, assuming you have +5 to your spellcasting modifier, while Storm Sphere does an average of 16. So it does a little bit more damage and creates difficult terrain, not to mention dealing damage to creatures inside the sphere. And you don't have to be a cleric to take it. It's a super efficient spell that doesn't take up more than one action and can continue to deal pretty heavy damage as combat progresses. 5th level was another difficult level because it also has a lot of very potent spells. I ended up settling on one which I think is underrated for a bit of a different reason than the rest: CLOUDKILL. So what do I mean by that? I think people know CLOUDKILL is a strong spell. The thing is, I don't think people know exactly how strong of a spell CLOUDKILL is. It creates a 20-foot radius sphere of poisonous fog which spreads around corners. That's a 40-foot diameter sphere. It can deal 5d8 damage to a creature who enters the radius or starts its turn there, which is a pretty fair amount of damage as is. Here's the kicker though. The area of CLOUDKILL is heavily obscured. In other words, every single creature in that area is completely blind. So if you cast CLOUDKILL on a group of monsters, not only do they start suffering heavy poison damage, they're also entirely blind. They don't know where to run, where the enemies are, or who to attack. It just completely disrupts the enemy, forcing them to move far away, while also dealing a lot of damage in a large area. If you cast the spell in a choke point where enemies don't really have anywhere to run, the rest of your party can basically just relax because the encounter's over. At 6th level, I chose the spell Contingency. Contingency is exactly what it sounds like. You cast a spell of level 5th or below. Instead of the effects happening immediately, you set a condition for when that spell will actually take place. The example given in the spell is casting water breathing on yourself and setting the condition for when you're fully enveloped in water. Once you set the spell, it lasts for 10 days. In other words, you can cast Contingency on yourself before bed and then have both those spell slots back in the morning and have that conditional spell set for the next 10 days. One condition I found myself using is casting Dimension Door to teleport me 500 feet away when I'm about to take fatal damage. This spell essentially acts as a get out of jail free card with very little risk, since the condition can last for up to 10 days. It may not seem incredibly powerful for a 6th level slot, but it is definitely the kind of spell you forget about until it saves your life. Alright, we are getting to the higher level spells now at 7th level. 7th level was full of spells that are known to be pretty powerful. Delayed Blast Fireball, Force Cage, Firestorm, that kind of stuff. So for this one, I picked a spell that I'm actually going to recommend specifically to the DMs watching. Mirage Arcane. The reason I'm recommending this one specifically to DMs is because it is difficult for me to imagine a situation in which a PC would want to take this spell, but it is a very powerful illusion spell that can create an incredible encounter for the party. Mirage Arcane can make terrain in a mile square look, sound, and even feel like some other sort of terrain, lasting for 10 days. It is a tactile illusion, so you can create difficult terrain, alter structures, or create structures where there were none previously. Even people with true sight can see through the illusion, but their other senses remain the same. This is one of my favorite spells from a DMing perspective because it allows me to mold an area to the whims of a powerful caster NPC. The first time the party meets this NPC, they might live in a large tower in a barren wasteland. The next time the party visits, they would have to navigate a maze the NPC created, leading to a large oasis in the center. It just gives the DM a lot to play with and can cause moments of, how are they doing this? In even experienced players due to the relative unpopularity of the spell. For the second highest level spell slot, I had to go with Antipathy, Sympathy. This spell does not get enough attention for how powerful it really is. Antipathy Sympathy is another spell where you can choose between two effects. For both of them, you choose either a huge or smaller object or creature, or an area no larger than a 200-foot cube. So basically, anything other than, like, gigantic stuff. If a creature can see the target or comes within 60 feet of it, they have to make the save. Antipathy makes them afraid of the target and run away from it if they fail, which can be nice if you're trying to keep enemies away from one of your party members. Sympathy, however, makes creatures run towards the target. This may not seem incredibly strong on the surface, but there are a couple spells that deal a lot of damage in a small radius, and say you cast this spell on a small rock in the middle of the battle, any creature who sees that rock is going to have to run towards it. And by the way, once they get there, they can't leave until they've broken the effects of the spell. Suddenly, you've got a pretty high value fireball lined up quite nicely. Alternatively, you could say cast it on a rock and throw the rock into a raging fire. As long as they can still see the rock, they have to walk towards it. I don't know. I'm just snowballing ideas at this point, but you see what I'm saying. It gives a lot of options and can really disrupt an enemy's plan. For our final spell coming in at the big ol' 9th level, I chose Prismatic Wall. Obviously, 9th level spells have to be insanely strong. When competing with Mass Heal, Wish, Meteor Swarm, and the like, you need a very powerful spell to justify spending a 9th level spell slot to use it. And Prismatic Wall, in my opinion, is definitely one of those spells. Prismatic Wall can create a very large, opaque wall that can either be vertical or shaped into a 30-foot diameter sphere. When you cast the spell, you can designate any number of creatures who can walk through the wall or be near it without being affected. Any other creatures within 20 feet of it have to make a Constitution saving throw or be blinded for 1 minute. If they fail, they're blind for that minute. There's no saving throw against it after the initial one. In addition, the wall has 7 layers: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. To pass through the wall, you have to pass through all 7 layers. Each layer can be destroyed in a unique way, but they also each have their own unique effect. You have to make a dexterity saving throw for every layer you're attempting to pass through. If you fail the red wall save, you take 10d6 fire damage, orange does 10d6 acid, yellow does 10d6 lightning, green does 10d6 poison, blue does 10d6 cold, indigo restrains you and can petrify you, and violet blinds you and then can teleport you to another plane of existence. So, yeah. Basically, just don't try to get through this wall. And the conditions to break each of the layers are incredibly specific. Red requires 25 points or more of cold damage, orange requires a strong wind, yellow requires 60 force damage, green requires a spell like Pass Wall of equal or greater level that can open a portal on a solid surface. Yeah. It's nuts. Like I said, any creature within 20 feet of the wall, they have to make a con save or be blinded. If you make a 30-foot sphere around a group of creatures, they're always going to be within that range, so they all have to make the save every round. In addition, you and your allies can pass through it freely without being affected. God forbid one of you decides to push a creature through the hell wall and force them to make all those saves. So basically, this spell can create a huge wall and section off a fight, or make this Thunderdome of blindness and super death to any creatures in a 30-foot sphere. This isn't just a strong spell, it's one of the strongest spells in the game. And just like that, we've come to the end of my list. I hope you all enjoyed the video and maybe gained an appreciation for these not so mainstream spells. Let me know in the comments what spells you think are underrated, and tell me about some times you've utilized them to their true potential. I look forward to hearing from you, but until then, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you around.